Okay, welcome everybody to How to Love Yourself. Very important subject. We are going to start with a lot of practical things, and we're going to move into the more subtle stuff. This is paper and pens because I think it is best actually if you take your own notes because you are yourself and you are learning how to love yourself. So it's better than me giving you like flyers that'll just go somewhere, right? And you sit in your car. So,
Are we supposed to sit at the table?
Yeah. If we don't have your email address, I think I have most of your email addresses. If I don't have it, go ahead and put it down. Oh, great. Great. And I've got cards and I've got services descriptions for people who need those. Okay. So what we want is,
Just watch out for this leg.
yeah, just tell me if you guys want to get more intimate because you're very far away. And tell me if I need to like project more, but I'm pretty loud, right? I'm a loud voice for sure. Okay, so basically if we all mastered this subject, we would be enlightened right now. Seriously. That's why it's like, you know, if you really work on this, if you really start integrating just some, I'm just going to give you like practical tools and little ideas and suggestions tonight, and if you start integrating those into your life a little bit, making them part of your lifestyle, putting in habits into your everyday existence, it starts to seep in, you know, and it's like you're wiring your brain, because your brain has a bunch of stuff in it from your past lives or your ancestry or your parents or your childhood or on and on and on, right? So, and some of it is just from being on Earth at this time too. Some of it is just collective. So if we can rewire our brains and start sending our brains messages of happy, positive love that goes to here, that's like, it's like one of the most, I think, powerful techniques we can do. So, and the artist way that I taught earlier with a lot of you guys, 3 of these guys were in artist way with me, I will use a couple, I'll go over a little bit of that stuff again, but it's not going to be a lot of repetition because this is like Hillary's take on how to, not Julia Cameron's, but all that stuff in that book is really useful to know. Like if you don't have that book, that's a good book to try to get. Because all of those exercises can be useful.
Can you quote the book from us?
Even if you're not into art, even if you're not like about art, there's just so many. That's one of the best things about that class, I think, is that it teaches you how to love yourself more. Okay, we're gonna start right away with practical stuff. Okay, I'm gonna give you the little lecture about my health model again, just for a second, because this is the thing I always come back to. The reason why I always come back to it is because I did all this education and all of this experiential learning, and this explains things for me. So, and it's very simple, which is nice. Basically, if you're trying to do something for your soul doesn't need anything to change, right? Your soul is perfect the way it is. It's like a snowflake. It has its own individual shape to it, right? By the way, I turned on the air conditioning if you guys are hot, because I'm a little hot. It has its own individual shape to it, and it's always going to be that greatest, unique, individual self, you know. But living here on Earth, you have a body, you have energy, you have beliefs and ideas and all sorts of emotions going on, and different things that might not be, a lot of them are lessons your soul needs to learn. And you chose to learn it this time, but some of them could be just part of being here right now, like I said before, too. And so this is the thing. You have karma from your past lives in here, right? You don't have to believe this. This is like, I'm just giving you my model, and you can believe whatever you want, okay? That's my experience, is that you have past experiences, right? Even if they are not on this planet. So those experiences are actually part of your mental body because you created your reality from the very beginning. And so that's why we always get to take responsibility, but also we have power. We have power to change anything that's a problem for us. And it can be hard because we are in an environment that is highly challenging, definitely. I will definitely give that to anybody, right? But for sure, there's always something we can do to make our lives better. So right now is the time of ascension. Right now is the shifting of major energy on this planet. And we all came here at this time, whether or not we know it, we came here to go through this particular change. And that's probably why you're all sitting in here right now today, too, because we came here because we wanted to get enlightened, which I'm going to define very simply as our spirit knowing our physical self. God knowing us as an individual, or God knowing himself or herself through us. So anyway, our mental body creates a lot of things on this very subtle level, okay? Our mental body creates our emotional body, actually, by having those ideas up there, those intentions and things. Now, it doesn't mean that experiences that happened to us didn't create an emotion in us, but we created that desire to have that experience from the beginning, right? So everybody kind of gets that concept. If we have emotional stuff, it's not an accident. It's by our own design, actually, and it was because we wanted to go through that or learn that. That's my experience. And from that emotional stuff gets created a bunch of other stuff. So from our emotional body gets created our energy. So we cannot have a lot of energy if we have a lot of negative beliefs and emotions that are blocking up our system. It is actually impossible for us to have a lot of energy. If we have a lot of energy, though, if we have a clear mental and emotional body and we have a lot of energy, we will also have a physical body that should be healthy and clear of problems. So that is why, even though I know all this energetic medicine, I know a lot about herbs, and I really used to be really into working with the subtle physical. I do still really like massage and stuff like that. Still, I kind of tend to work at a more subtle level because I feel like if people can get that subtle level really, if we can really understand our subtle body and our mental body and start to change things from there, then everything else changes so much easier and faster and more spontaneously, and we don't have to work at it. We don't have to be get up in the morning, okay, now I'm going to eat something healthy even though I'm really tired and I really want to eat a hamburger, whatever, So, the physical body creates a collective body. The collective body is what we are dealing with every day when we get on to the freeway, right? Or when we go to the mall. And some of us have more trouble with that than others, right? There's I know 2 projectors right here. There might be some others. But that's a human design thing, so I won't get into that right now. But, so if you have trouble with the collective body, which could be any of you, really, at any point, right? Just remember that what you do, your power to change yourself does actually change everybody else. It just takes a while because the collective body moves very slowly. But your way that you think about yourself and whether or not you love yourself actually is going to affect everyone around you, especially the immediate people around you, and then eventually that ripples out. It always ripples out, right? So it's optimistic. Okay, so we're going to start at the grossest level, right, and work in. Now, a lot of people know, as far as a collective body, that if you went out to the mall or whatever and you started giving away free hugs or free Valentines or something, you'd probably get a good feeling about yourself, right? That would be something on the collective level that you could do to love yourself, because everyone else is also you. That's a little bit complex. We're going to go right to the physical body of our individual selves and start with there, okay? We're going to start with the 5 senses. Physical activities that make you feel loved as an individual could be almost anything, okay? That's why I talk about the artist way or artistic things, because art is a very individual thing as well, and it's about the right brain. And so is loving yourself. Loving ourselves is being in the feminine and learning how to really like be there and nurture ourselves the way we would nurture a child. Okay, the way that you would want to parent a little kid. So you are your own little kid, always, always. And you have to remember that, because if you would react lovingly to a child when they hurt their finger, that's how you should react to yourself too. Like when you go out in the world and you get blisters on your heels, like me.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah, it's like that is always, there's always a sign. There's always something that happens that is telling you, this is your opportunity now. Give yourself more love.
Yeah.
Give yourself more love, always, okay? So, the five senses we're going to start with first. You have hearing, right? You have feeling, or the kinesthetic sense. You have seeing. You have taste. And smell. Thank you. And these actually all correspond to different elements in Eastern medicines as well. And if you're into any of that stuff, I'm going to teach a class on elements, actually. Elements in Chinese and Ayurvedic medicine at some point in September. Look it up because it's already scheduled. And the thing is, if you know about the elements, you know more ways of loving yourself. But we're going to go with the senses right now. So, this is mostly the tongue, right? And this is mostly the nose. Okay, so you individually have sounds that to you translate as love. Okay? For some people, that could be like heavy metal. I mean, I'm not going to be judgmental here about it, right? For some people, it could be sacred, Sanskrit sounds. Or some people, it could be like a harp or different cultural things too, because we all have different makeups, even just, not just that we have a different background, right, in this life than each other, but some of us might have spent lifetimes and lifetimes in certain cultures too. And so there might just be a certain language that we have that's more intimate to us, right? If you play Chinese music for me, I might not have the same experience from it that a Chinese person might. So in that sense, go with what you know, like it's always, you feel it right here. So if you have sounds or music that make you feel good, that is a technique for you right there. And you can use that whenever, and we're not just talking about like when stuff happens in your life that makes you feel bad. That is definitely a time though that you should start incorporating these practices, right? When something happens that makes you feel bad. Because if you can respond to yourself like you would to that child, right? Then, and also like I said, getting hurt, having things happen, like you get a traffic ticket even, something a little bit abstract might happen like that, and you might feel like, what is that message that it's trying to give me? I would go right away to the self-love, because if you can do something self-loving for yourself right away, you're probably going to figure out if there's a deeper meaning there that you need to know. It's going to be easier for you to get the message, because you just can't, it's just so hard to be open to the world or God or anyone else if you can't be open to yourself and give yourself love, right? And that goes for feeling feelings too. It's so hard for us to feel our own feelings or know what it is we're feeling if we're not loving ourselves. Like if you ask a kid who isn't getting any attention what they feel, they might just tell you like, I don't know. Because they have to have that like energy, that attention on them, even to know what they're feeling maybe. So, and I used to work with emotionally disturbed kids, so I know that one for a fact. But, so you have kinesthetic things that feel good to you also, okay? I'm going to start giving you examples, but I just want to go through these five senses first. A lot of people like massage. A lot of people like yoga. Maybe for you, it's more like you like to lie. Some people put things on the floor and lie on them and like roll around. Or maybe you like to go into those, how little kids get into those The playgrounds with the
Yeah.
balls. The thing is, that stuff directly communicates a message of love, usually to your brain, because you are a physical being and you were a baby at one point, and your receptors were open at that point for kinesthetic touch to communicate that message of love to you. That's how your mom showed you that she loved you, probably, was some kind of touch, some kind of hug or something, probably. So that is a very human thing, right? That almost transcends every culture. So it's good if we can get hugs from people, but we have to start learning how to love ourselves and not relying on it from other people, because the more that we do it for ourselves, the more that other people start doing it for us. It's just like, your brain doesn't know how to receive that from someone else, so the whole passageway will be blocked, and you won't be able to get that from somebody else, and they won't offer it for you until you start giving it to yourself, because then you're you're engaging those neurons, and you're creating that neuronal pathway in your brain that creates that habit that's already there, and then it's so easy for people to give you love. It's so easy for people to give you hugs or whatever it is that you want.
Yeah, sure. Question,
Mhm.
if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Because I'm a big believer in self-love, and I think I love myself a lot, but I always say love yourself more. I
Yeah.
assume that everyone can. However, I've done a lot of reading of Eckhart Tolle, and there was a situation in my life, I'll make it real quick, it was very difficult for me, and I made it more difficult by feeling sorry for myself.
Uh-huh.
I was stuck because my dad remarried, and my stepmother didn't like me, and I wasn't able to see him, so I used to tell lots of people about it
Mhm.
for me. And finally I met a therapist who was studying under Tolle, who said in a very eloquent way, not quite the way I'm going to tell you because I don't remember it, but she wouldn't have said it. She was saying, well, I can't change the situation with your stepmother and your father. So you either, two choices, very simple. You
Mhm.
either go see your father with love and love, or don't see him.
Mhm.
Now, at the point I was ready to hear that, but this is my question to you. And she said, I don't know how she said this, but the point was, you're feeling sort of sorry for yourself. And right when she said that, but she didn't say it that way, I said, my gosh, I had so much love for my parents. Why would I feel sorry for myself? There was so many things to be grateful for.
Mhm.
But the point I want you to ask is this. In deciding to love ourselves, I think the point you made that seems to make a lot of sense is that we shouldn't depend on others, because had others, during the time I was telling them about this, just listened to me and not said, oh, poor you, you didn't get the love. That just
Mhm.
it made me, you know what I'm getting to? That
Yeah.
just continued the pity and the sorrow.
Mhm.
So I'm wondering where I think self-love you're talking about with us, trying to go and complain to people and crying on people's shoulder, sometimes doesn't really, at least in my opinion, based on what I've gone through, doesn't help you work through it. It reinforces the fact that you feel sorry for yourself and injustice has been done, when actually you need to get a grip, deal with it, and move on. So
Okay.
Can I have your response to that?
Yeah. So, thanks for the question. You have taken this body as an opportunity to learn certain things, right? So, whenever you can take the matter into your own hands and learn your own lesson yourself, that just opens up the pathways also for others to help you. But, so that's my thing, is that we have these patterns, right? We have these habits, and they're based on our beliefs. And so we do the same thing over and over again. And that's why it was so useful for that therapist not to say, oh, poor you, to
She
you.
didn't say it, yeah, she didn't say it away, but I found,
Yeah.
I came to that conclusion myself.
Right, because it kind of broke that whole pattern for you, right?
Right.
Because there was a belief that it was maybe not your fault, or that somebody else should give you something, right?
Right.
And by not reinforcing that belief, finally, it kind of opened up, okay, what is it that's true, right? And that feeling of questioning what is it that's true is always going to be a good thing for us, because it opens up everything. It allows God and all of the people around us to actually give us real information, right?
Right.
So if we're open to, and we're going to talk about this, if we're open to God or Goddess or whatever it is you believe in, source, you could name it a million things, right? If you're open to that force in the universe, then you're going to receive, like a child does from the mother, that natural thing that is part of life, because love is actually a substance almost. It's a part of consciousness. And it's been called like the glue that holds the universe together.
Right.
So love is there just by us existing, just by us having consciousness. So when we understand that, it makes it so much easier because we get to, you're kind of actually just getting to the more advanced part of this
Maybe.
class already.
Which I was
just
going to say is I got a lot of compassion from people, but what they didn't help me because they reinforced the injustice that at the time I thought existed. And it just, even though I must not mad at them, they doing the best they can, we've all done it. It didn't help me move forward because they said, this is what the problem is, it shouldn't have happened, and it just, okay, right. So that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, which is interesting because love can actually look like things that we don't necessarily think are love, right? It can actually not look like love to give what we think is love, and it can actually be love to not say, oh, I feel sorry for you, or maybe like, let's get this taken care of, like let's, can you actually heal this in yourself, right? So yeah,
that's okay.
If we start, it's a really long subject, but it's like, if we start that pathway, it's like there's really no one else who can do it for us. We are not a victim. Right. That's the thing. We're not a victim, and there's nobody who can love us for us. There's nobody who can live our life for us. There's nobody who can be us, right? So the more that we love ourselves, the more that other people start to love us, and that whole pathway is opened up and everything. But we're going to get to the God thing too, because eventually it's just opening. That's all. Eventually it's just opening up to that force that's already there and that love that's already there all the time. And then that's so simple and easy, you know? But sometimes for a long time at first we need to work on all the habits, the self-loving habits, so that they're supporting us to open up and feel that, because we don't even know what that feels like at first. What is that there? I mean, in our experience, you know, it might not feel like anything at first because it's blocked in our cells a little bit, you know? So it doesn't feel like love at first, maybe. So, but feeling sorry for yourself can actually be a self-loving activity. It depends on whether or not you're really feeling where you are in the present moment, or whether you're avoiding something. If you're avoiding something, it is not self-love. Yes. Yes. If you're avoiding something, it's not self-love. But the more love you can give yourself, the easier it is to stop avoiding your issues. Oh my gosh. Because if you're not giving yourself love, then man, those emotional experiences are really intense.
Right.
Yeah, because it's so much worse without the love. So much worse. In fact, I have a lot of personal experience in this area of like really intense emotional stuff because I didn't know how to love myself. So, yeah, that's a long thing. But if you can start loving yourself, then it makes everything else easier, and the avoiding starts to just like crumble away. Okay, because you're giving yourself everything that you really actually want. I mean, really, what do we want out of life? We probably want some kind of feeling of success or achievement. We probably want some safety and security, and connection and love. Those are like the three main categories probably, right? I mean, there's a lot of other things that we'd like. We'd like some great physical stuff. But a lot of that stuff actually materializes once we already feel the love and the success, right? If we already feel those qualities in our life, those things are easier to just come up and happen. Like, I knew they were going to have a class today, so I waited because, you know, it's like it was there on the consciousness level, so I just waited for it to materialize as people. Okay, so there are seeing things also that make you feel loved as a person, and nobody can tell you what those things are for you, you know? It's really individual, and it's not okay for somebody else to tell you, that wasn't a self-loving thing you did, or are you sure that that's a self-loving activity? You know, none of that is appropriate, actually, because judgment has no place in love. So if somebody is judging you, you just tell them, I'm sorry, I'm loving myself right now, so I don't need your judgment. We'll wait until later. I'm sorry that you don't feel enough love for yourself that you have to judge me. And that's what happens to us ourselves, too, is we judge ourselves. We say, oh, that's not good for me to eat that. Well, how do we know for sure? It's like, honestly, yeah, most of the time, vegetables are better for you than ice cream, right? That's what our scientists, or like what our nutritionists say, at least. Even Eastern medicine says that. But the thing is, if you feel love with ice cream, it might actually, now it's always individual and it always depends on the circumstance in the moment, right? And you have to start trusting your own self and trusting your intuition about stuff. But so if it's a way of avoiding something, if you're eating ice cream as an avoidance of a feeling, then it's not really self-loving. If you're eating ice cream because your dad always used to give you ice cream to show you that he loved you, then it's okay right now because it's opening up that pathway for love, you know? And what you do is you look at yourself and you say, okay, was it self-loving of me to eat this thing that I ate today? Was it self-loving of me the way that I treated myself when I got up in the morning? Was it self-loving of me to do this particular exercise? Because you know the answer deep down inside. You know. And only you can know, and nobody else can, actually. Because me doing like marathon running is not usually actually self-loving for me. Me dancing at 1 o'clock in the morning might be a self-loving activity for myself. But that is not necessarily true for everybody else, right? And if this goes back to, like, you know, I like personality systems, I know a lot about human design. If somebody has a lot of energy in their system, maybe it is very self-loving of them actually to run a marathon, right? But if they don't have a lot of energy, it might be like self-flagellation actually. So it's all individual. So you just have to start trusting yourself because you know in your heart. And it's your heart, your intuition, it's not up here. This is actually not the place for answers. This is not an authority. This is a good place to figure out puzzles or, like, you know, if you're entertaining yourself. But this is, like Jan and I just read in the Lemurian books, I mean, this is the place where people went to, like, destroy all of civilization, you know? Because putting your mind above your heart is always, always going to create a separation between you and God, basically. Okay, so back to these things. So I like to watch funny movies, okay? Sometimes I still do that. I know how to give myself love on very deep levels. I can do energy work on myself, but you know what? Every once in a while, I just need to stop doing things and watch a funny movie. That's because I don't do very well sometimes with work. Work can be a message to my brain that I don't love myself. It's not that it has to be that way for everybody, but most of the time in Western society we use work as a means of self-flagellation. We're like, you're not good enough, you better try harder, right? It doesn't have to be that way. If you're doing work that you love, it will feel like self-love. If you are watching something that's very violent, it might not feel like self-love. So please pay attention to that, because you cannot lie to yourself, because yourself knows better. You cannot lie to yourself and tell yourself that you did something self-loving because you watched something that made you not actually feel that good, right? Taste. Taste is a good one. Okay. Food is a really big problem for a lot of people, right? Because we just talked about ice cream, and that's such a controversial subject that I just told you that ice cream could be self-loving, right? But we have to be careful with it. We have to be like, okay, you know, you might have to make a pros and cons list with yourself sometimes. All right, well, the pros about this ice cream, the cons. You know, really see if it's self-loving. See which side has more, you know, whether you've got more pros or more cons. Because if it's got more cons, it's probably not self-loving. And that's just a simple mental technique you can do, but you know in a deep way in your heart or your intuition, though. And sometimes we just need those mental techniques to, like, verify for us. You know, like you have to pull a tarot card or something. You know, not that we should analyze and examine everything we do all day, but if we can, at the end of the day, if we can say, what was self-loving that I did for myself today? And if we can focus on something good that we did for ourselves, you can really give yourself a really nice feeling. And even in the books that Jan and I have been reading it lately, they say, if you can thank yourself, give yourself some gratitude at the end of the day before you go to sleep for what you did for yourself when you were conscious or when you did something nice for yourself. That actually is positive reinforcement in behavioral modification terms, right? And then you will want to do that thing again. You will want to have that feeling again at night. Okay, so I'm not going to go too much into food, but you got to use your whole faculties, right? You got to use your mind, your heart, your intuition, everything to evaluate. A lot of times you don't need to eat. Sometimes you just need to drink some tea or something, right? And that might feel like love. The problem is a lot of us have this pathway developed where somebody gave us food to tell us that they loved us. So if we can start using that pathway slightly differently, like making it tea instead of cookies or whatever, that might be a better, more healthy, more actual self-loving technique. Because what's actually self-loving? If you're giving yourself cookies all day to give yourself the message that you're loved, that's not actually self-loving in the end, right? Like in the final analysis. So smell. If you can surround yourself with some smells you like, it could really change a lot, actually. Like, if you have to go to the office and you hate your job, and you put on some kind of, essential oil or something that you like, I mean, it's not about whether or not I like it, right? It's about whether or not you like it. And if somebody hates lavender, then they should not wear lavender.
In the office nowadays, it's funny because even at the church I go to, I don't know if all of you have the experience, but there's a lot of no scent-free zones because people seem to be more sensitive to scents. So that's a good idea, but if you're in a place you can do it, I just had to laugh because
it's true.
I wouldn't be able to do it in my,
Yeah, it's true. You have to be a little bit careful and sensitive to other people. And I used to go to a meditation dome where you couldn't wear any perfume or oil of any kind there. And sometimes I was like, maybe I should have stayed home and covered myself in my essential oils and meditated there. Because what's the more self-loving thing? It could be either way for anybody, right? For a given person. So it could be that people have the most feelings of love when they're around other people, okay? The reason for that is because we all have consciousness inside of us. We all have God inside of us. So when two people come together or when a group of people come together, you actually feel that exchange of consciousness and God, that energy exchange that goes between you. And that's a magical thing. And that's why people get addicted to other people. And they get addicted to relationships. And the thing is, it's the same thing as drugs. It's the same thing as food. It's the same thing as work addiction. It's the same thing as any other addiction. Because it's not you healing yourself. It's not you learning your lessons, right? So, if you can do those things for yourself, if you can give yourself that magic, because you actually have it in here. So, you have to create a new pathway, right? Instead of the pathway from heart to heart, the pathway goes from your heart and back to your body and your heart again, right? Or around yourself. You can do energetic things where you wrap yourself in your own heart energy, or you can, we'll get into that stuff if we get there. I always talk too long and then we have a very long class. Okay. So I'm going to give you, alright, there are some physical things that certain people need to feel loved, okay? If I don't get enough sleep, I start to feel like I'm not loving myself, okay? So there's stuff like that. There's lifestyle. And this goes, the 3 pillars of lifestyle health in Ayurveda are actually sleep, food, and meditation, or the way that we deal with our sexual drive. Depends on who you talk to. The way that you deal with your sexual drive is it's about the second chakra and connection. That's all. So it's the same thing, like what we were just talking about. It's connecting to yourself. and giving yourself that feeling of connection can actually, if you have sex addiction, it can actually cure a lot of that if you start doing these self-loving techniques. Because the whole thing about sex that I think is so funny, people see it as a very physical thing, and it is, but it's really just people wanting love. That's really all it is. It's just like when you go to the ice cream to get love from the ice cream. Or when you go compulsive shopping, right, to get love from the clothes or whatever. So doing like permanently good things for yourself in these areas of lifestyle are actually becoming messages in your brain that you love yourself. If you're doing things for yourself that you know are not like permanently good for your health, then you're sending a message to your brain every day, I don't really value you. I don't really respect you, is what you're saying. It's like if you had a kid and you were like letting them stay up till midnight, well, they'd be really excited for the first couple nights, right? And then they would feel like, wow, maybe they don't really love me. You know, like I'm tired every day and like nobody notices or cares. That's not, but we're doing that to ourselves all the time, you guys. Like when you go to work and you're tired because you haven't slept enough, you're giving yourself that message, like, I don't really respect you. So, and that goes for your body, your energy, your emotions, your mind, all of it. Your heart, right? It's all about the heart, this whole thing. So, we talked about, okay, we did like funny movies, essentials, baths. People can take baths for the kinesthetic feeling, right? Or like go to the spa, get massages. Some people really like to dance or swim. Meditation can be a very good practice, like a lifestyle practice. Because when you sit there and you just let yourself open up to consciousness, God, goddess, source, whatever you believe in, right? If there's some meditation style where you just get to sit there and open up, that is a lifestyle practice that will start to make you feel more permanently loved. Okay, we went through art, we went through sounds or music. You can read books that feel nurturing to you, right? You can watch movies that feel nurturing to you. Nurturing, interesting word. That's the word we use for taking care of babies. Same thing. If you're watching a movie, you're like, does this fit into the nurturing word?
Yes.
It's not self-loving if it doesn't, if you couldn't describe it as nurturing, right? Like, and it's not like never go watch a violent movie. It's not like that, okay? There's no absolutes, right? If you laugh a whole bunch, then that might be a self-loving movie for you. If you cry and you needed to cry, that might be a self-loving movie for you, right? But if you're watching a TV show where you feel like kind of bad afterwards, probably not a self-loving activity for you. Okay, usually things that touch the heart in some way, usually something that touches your heart is good for you. A lot of people like to paint. Writing in the journal, a very self-reflective activity, like we learned in Outer Sway, very good lifestyle practice for loving yourself. So, meditation, journal writing. I like to put yoga in here too because it's the kind of exercise that you actually feel relaxed and more nurtured afterwards usually, right? If it doesn't feel nurturing for you, then you have to be careful with it and slow and, you don't push yourself. That's the whole point of yoga, right? If you're pushing yourself in any area, it's probably not self-love. It's self-love if you need, to motivate yourself, right? If you, need to just be like, okay, I'm just going to do it because I won't do it if I don't make myself go out of the door and go to the gym right now. I won't do it, right? And if you need that initial push and then afterwards you feel really good, then that was a self-loving activity. If you don't feel really good afterwards, not a self-loving activity. Art therapy, lots of people like different kinds of art that makes them feel nurtured and loved. Because the thing is, self-loving activities usually have some element of inner child happiness in them. It usually makes your inner child happy. Like I have ridiculous little kid bubbles in my purse, just in case I decide sometime that I want to blow bubbles.
I hope not on the freeway.
I know, but there's something really therapeutic about just letting yourself do something that you liked when you were a kid that doesn't have any adult meaningfulness to it. That's a self-loving activity, and it might be even more self-loving because there's no adult meaningfulness to it, because there's no productivity angle, okay? It's not going towards a goal, all right? All that stuff that we think that we should do because it goes towards these goals, those goals are in the future. They're in the future, they're not in the present moment. And they're not actually making us feel happy in the present moment. And if we're feeling happy doing something in the present moment, it might actually develop into an accomplishment of some kind, right? But when we're pushing ourselves to do stuff we don't like, to go towards a certain goal, not self-loving. So for some people, taking naps could be self-loving, right? For some people, like Esmina likes to go to the lake, right? Artist dates, like you learned Artist Way, most of you have taken it except for Lana, I think. Oh, and Lauren. Artist dates are like you give yourself 2 hours by yourself. You cannot do this with anybody else. Because that's the whole point, is you can't do a self-loving thing with somebody else. Make a note in your notes. You cannot do a self-loving thing with somebody else because you can't give yourself full attention then. You're giving attention to someone else then. But if you give yourself 2 hours to do something that makes you happy for no reason, like without any goal, that is a self-loving activity. That's also called an artist date. Some people like to get pedicures, manicures. That could be a self-loving activity. It's more effective if you're by yourself, actually. Anything is more effective self-loving wise if you're by yourself. But if you have to start out by going to get a pedicure by, with somebody that you know, that's fine. You got to start somewhere, man. You'll know when it starts not being self-loving for you. Because if you come home and you've just absorbed all the energy of that person who did the pedicure for you, that wasn't self-loving really anymore, right? Or if you come home and you're like, wait, oh no, I have to rush to this thing, right? That was actually not a self-loving activity because you put in too many things in your schedule and you made it too hard for yourself to go from that thing to whatever else you had to go to next, right? So if you have a feeling afterwards like, oh, just think about it a little bit because it might have been worth it, but it might not have been. It's so much more self-loving to give yourself a pedicure when you actually have a whole Saturday that doesn't matter what you do, right? Okay. These things seem like kind of common sense, but they're not. They're not really common sense to us because we didn't learn them from our parents. Most of our parents did not know any of this stuff, actually, really. They didn't teach us these things. Okay. So taking care of somebody else, taking care of a child, taking care of a pet is not a self-loving activity. It's okay. It's not that you have to stop doing it. It's not like you can't babysit or you can't have a pet. It's just you can't use that as an excuse that you did something self-loving when you were taking care of somebody else unless you really afterwards feel like there was love that went out, that went from you, your heart, back to you again. And that's really... it's not probably going to be babysitting. It's not. That's a loving activity you're doing for somebody else, and that's awesome because you're teaching them, you're helping them learn how to love themselves, actually. But it's not something you're doing for yourself. So try not to get those two confused because a lot of women get those confused.
What about the perceived love that you get affection from an animal? If you feel like bonding, that's a little right.
That was in the gray area for me, actually, a little bit, because animals are very low maintenance, some of them. You're not, like, running around all the time trying to take care of them necessarily. If you have a cat that's snuggling with you, it feels really awesome, right? So you can start there, but it's always good to start moving into being by yourself.
Right.
Not that you can't ever snuggle with your cat, just that you start doing also things by yourself that are self-loving for you. Snuggling with a cat is very close. It's very close to a self-loving activity, right? Because the cat isn't like talking your ear off, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, you're not. You still have an object outside of yourself that you're giving attention to. That's the whole thing. So okay, it doesn't have to cost money or time to do self-loving things for yourself. Okay, it can, but it doesn't have to. And most of us have a really hard time figuring out how to even do something self-loving for ourselves that doesn't cost money. Because we think, oh, self-loving, I get a massage, I get a pedicure. That's not that it's those things are not self-loving. They are, but you need to start. Everybody needs to start learning how to do stuff themselves that's not costly in that way, because we're so reliant on our capitalist money kind of culture that if we don't know how to like just sit with ourselves in our room, there's something wrong. Okay, so those things count, but try not to rely on just buying yourself something. We get into the area of addiction again with all that money and things and, you know, food and all these things. Okay. So, energy. Let's move into energy. Anybody got questions about this category? Physical activities? Energy is more subtle than the body, like we just described. So we're going to get more subtle here. So you can do energy activities with yourself. Meditation is one, especially if it has some mindfulness to it, or there's some kind of love that you're feeling from it. There's all sorts of self-loving meditations out there that you can do, and we're going to practice something right now in a second. Doing, like, if you've learned Reiki or Diksha, for instance, one of those, you can do that on yourself. That's a self-loving activity, right? Or some kind of blessing, right? A lot of people know, like, religious blessings or pujas or something, right? If you're doing it with yourself, by yourself, for yourself, right, then it's self-loving. I'm going to do that. I'm going to put that up here. With, for, and by. Seems so simple and self-explanatory, right? But
Yeah.
we hardly ever do it. Okay. Yoga is almost energetic. There's other things, right, that are energetic. But we're going to go into, like, energy work. See, because if you start learning how to do some form of simple intention energy work on yourself, then you can start doing that without it even being an activity anymore. Like, it just becomes a thought after a while. It just becomes a pathway that you opened up already, and that you're open to the love and consciousness in God. So let us close our eyes. Take a deep breath from our tummy. Okay, so I want to leave this pretty open to your own individual heart. Your own self feels things differently than everybody else, according to your experiences and the way that your soul is created. But the important thing is that there are different universal things that people have tried that help them. And so I'm going to give you a couple of different tools here. So we're going to just breathe, and we're going to start bringing our attention to our heart. Just feeling whatever is there. So a lot of people like to work with rays or colors. What I feel is the most self-loving color or light that you can envelop yourself in is usually pink. Some people like green or gold, or even just light, just a pure translucent white light can feel loving to people. But the two qualities of consciousness, light and love, are actually, they're one thing, but they're also a little bit separate for some people. So I think it's best to start with pink and move on to green and really experiment with those two colors at first. So if you envelop yourself in a pink bubble that feels like what a rose quartz would look like, or some kind of energy of a stone like that, like a pink pearl or rose quartz. See if you can start to feed that energy into your heart. You're just opening up your heart to let that in. Keep breathing with that, and then we're going to slightly change the pathway. We're going to project that pink energy back out now from our heart, and then in a circle back to our body. It's going to go back up to our heart and back around to our body. It can go any direction. Just bringing the awareness to the rest of your body. See if you can find a place that doesn't feel very good. Usually all of us have one. Place of discomfort or pain or a problem area. And you're just going to find some love in your heart because you have unlimited supply of love. Every person does, whether or not we feel it or not. We're going to take that pure love energy from our heart and just draw a line in your mind between your heart and that place in your body that needs love. Just continue to breathe and stay with your experience in your body. The thing about energy is that it's very simple, so making things complicated doesn't help you. Actually, using intentions or like pictures in your mind or words, talking to yourself, those are energetic techniques. And you can do another thing now that we've been experiencing our own love a little bit. You can open up little bubbles in your pink bubble right now. You're going to open up little holes in your pink bubble all the way around to be permeable to universal love. And we're making that intention that it's only to universal love or to the love of Goddess. I'm going to use the word Goddess right now because it's an easily understandable, nurturing intention in our brain. And we're going to open up pathways in our aura to the love of Goddess. Just breathe and feel. What does it feel like? What would it feel like to open up to the love of Goddess? Some of you may have gotten a little glimpse of what that would feel like. You might feel something for a second and then not feel it anymore. And if that happens to you, it's because that is what it would feel like all the time. But you have blocked pathways, and it's because you don't feel ready to contain that much love yet. It might actually even like blow out your system. So some of our blocks are there on purpose because we don't feel ready to be that expanded enough to contain universal love. And some of them are blocks that we can start to let go of and release. We can just start by having that intention, releasing any blocks to universal love or to the love of Goddess or whatever we want to call it. We can also go in consciousness, we can go to our higher self, and we can ask our higher self for love. We can ask to create a pathway of love from our higher self to our lower self here on earth. And just feel what that would feel like, if it would be like a waterfall of love coming down to your lower self here, your body. Now let's open up to green light. Since we've worked with pink light a little bit, we're going to go now to the energy of an emerald or a green jade. Pick something that feels good to you. Maybe you like green aventurine better. That very pure, like very green energy that an emerald might give us. Just flood our aura with that color and see what that feels like. Today is Wednesday, which is the day of Mercury or the green day. So anytime that we don't feel anything, it's always because we're blocked, and that's okay, because that might be where we need to be right now. But it's just knowing that there's always more that's possible. There's always more love that you can feel, and it's not a dead end ever. You can even go to each of your chakras if you want and ask them to open up to receive love. Starting at your top head chakra. We'd like to open up and receive love in our crown chakra now. We'd like to open up and receive love in our third eye chakra. We'd like to open up and receive love in our throat chakra. We'd like to open up and receive love in our heart chakra. We'd like to open up and receive love in our sacred heart chakra. We'd like to open up and receive love in our third chakra or our will center. We'd like to open up and receive love in our pelvic or sexual chakra. We'd like to open up and receive love in our base chakra or earth chakra. And in our lower chakra, even lower than that one, the earth star chakra that's in between our legs, like down where our knees are. So just absorbing this energy as much as we can and breathing. And if there's anything that's too much for us, anytime we can always ask for things to just flow in, out of us. If we need to let go of anything, we can just let go of anything we don't need. Let's just slowly open our eyes and take a deep breath. How's everybody doing? So if you fall asleep trying to do energy work on yourself, you are blocked in some way. It might be okay though. It might be that you couldn't take any more at that time. The thing that's funny about doing self-love energy work is it's incredibly powerful. You know, as some of you might have felt just now, even just with that like little 5 to 10 minutes we did, I felt completely different. So it's amazing how just that intention of opening up to that love that's already there can be very powerful. You don't need to do an hour or 20 minutes even, maybe for you all you need is 2 minutes, you know. And if you have that intention to do that when you maybe wake up in the morning or something, just doing that little 2 minutes when you wake up in the morning might be a huge difference in your whole life. And that might start those pathways between your individual self and your higher self, or your individual self and God, Goddess, the universe, right? They can just start to flow in love even when you're not even paying attention to it later on. You can just walk down the street and receive love. But it's an art at first. It really is. It's not like we just are born knowing how to do it necessarily. And if you do self-love energy work on yourself and you have any kind of reaction, like you get anxious or you cry, that's okay. That actually means that you just unblocked something. Because if you had the intention to give yourself love, it's always good. It's always good. So you just unblocked maybe some anxiety in your body, or you just unblocked some sadness or some grief over not having love before, maybe, you know? And so that is, I mean, I do energy work with elements of creation also. Those are just other ways of giving yourself love. Anytime you give yourself any kind of energy work, it's love. It's self-love. But the intention that it should be self-love is important, though, right? Because we don't want to manipulate ourselves or, like, we just want to make sure we stay in our heart. Because whenever we start to get into our head about it, it becomes more complicated than it actually is, for one thing. If you can keep stuff simple and give yourself self-love energy work, I mean, yeah, there might be a lot of other more glamorous things, right? More glamorous spiritual techniques, but this is like the gold right here, baby. That's like what's going to give you what you want, because it's going to start manifesting in your life everything that you want. Because if you feel like you are deserving of love, because you've started to give yourself love and you've opened up the pathway and the belief that you are deserving of love, then you will start to get love from the universe in all different forms, including money, relationships, things that you want, people that you want, or a car, whatever. Right?
Yeah.
So that's incredibly, I cannot emphasize how powerful that is. Sometimes it is so much more powerful to do the simple thing instead of doing those really crazy complex things. Just always give yourself that intention that it's for your highest good, or that it's for your benefit, that it's a love. Anytime you say the word love, you're pretty much fine. Okay? You're not opening yourself up to evil energy anytime you use the word love. It really is that simple, and it doesn't have to be more complicated than that.
You know, something, if you don't mind, that helped me a lot was something Marilyn Norman, who works at the center, probably know her, she introduced at this gratitude class. She said there's been a lot of studies shown that, especially if you practice this a lot, that you radiate at a higher frequency, and you're always grateful. So I've started doing that since there. I write my journal almost every day religiously, but almost every day. I'm doing this for a month. And I don't just write, oh, I'm grateful for am I grateful for this? I think about what I'm grateful for, and what about that person I'm grateful. And the more you've done it, just for me, I've noticed little things that don't go my way, it's okay, because it's okay, because I feel so much gratitude, because if you focus not on lack and all the things you have, the abundance, it makes you feel love in your heart. It makes you feel that love. And so I just wanted to share that, because that sort of helped for me minimize what's not working, because I'm focusing on all the things that are working, and there are so many. Yeah. Our brain likes to find those things that are not working, right? Because that's actually part of our mental faculty is discernment.
The problem is our society thinks that our brain is what should rule us. And if we went from the heart, we wouldn't judge things. The brain and its judgment is okay because that's what it's supposed to do. It's discerning. It's saying this is on this side, this is on this side, this is black, this is white. But that's not really the truth of existence is the problem. It's okay to use that as a tool, but it's not like an ultimate authority. So anytime you do stuff like gratitude, affirmation, all these different techniques, gratitude itself is just like pure love. It's self-love, yeah. Because you're saying, what is working? What am I actually getting from God right now? Yeah. And what you're getting from God is love. You're getting from God is love, and you're probably, in a more technical sense, if you want to say getting light from God and love from God, but it's all the same thing in the end.
And actually, if you start counting at the end of the day how many things went right that day versus how many things went wrong, you'll always see the right balance was going to be heavier than the wrong balance.
And it's positive.
4 things went wrong, but 20 things went right. So, where am I?
Totally. And it's positive reinforcement for yourself. It's behavioral modification you're doing for yourself, actually, which is helpful because life is hard on planet Earth. Like, we have a lot of challenges, So focusing on what is wrong could be like a really long list, and it would not make you feel good afterwards, right? And the thing is, in your heart, you know what the truth is of your reason for being here. And probably your reason for being here is learning how to feel the love, right? Even in one of the more challenging environments to feel love. So we're getting into deeper stuff now. So as far as other lifestyle techniques besides the energy work, okay, and eating healthy food and things like that we talked about, you want to start dealing with emotions, okay? This is a whole area, right? It's a whole area because we were told by our parents, well, probably 2 things. One is, you're feeling something? I don't want to hear that. That's one message that a lot of us got. Another one is, oh no, you're feeling bad? Here, let me try to make it better. Right? That's almost a worse message in some ways because it doesn't actually make anything better. Because emotions are a continuum in infinity. Each emotion is a part of God. Every single emotion, that includes negative emotions. So it's like a rainbow, right? And if you're rejecting part of the rainbow, you will not get all of its rewards. You will not get all the benefits of it. I teach a whole class on this too. So if you're interested in this, because most people need serious healing in this area, I would say a good, at least 85% of people, maybe more. Because our society did not deal with this at all, okay? And the thing is that's so interesting is the emotions come from our heart. Our heart is an actual barometer of our soul. Our heart is the only direct communication to our soul. And there are certain sources that say that the collection of our experiences that resides in our heart is our unique individual, it's only unique to your soul that you've had those experiences. And it's not that your emotions actually have to be connected to your experiences. Your experiences are sacred, and they don't have to go anywhere. But your emotions are also sacred, and they don't have to be connected to your experiences, actually. But this is a more advanced area, which is why I teach a class on it, and I want to teach more of them, because it really takes, it's an art. It takes some practice, But the main thing with emotions that's simple, that I can teach you right now, is to say to yourself, I feel this feeling, and name it if you can. I accept this. Another level. I love this. So that's the magical word, right? I love you. Fill in your name. We are all standing around waiting for somebody to say, Hillary, I love you more than I've ever loved anyone in my entire life. Right? I'm using myself as an example right now. We're all sitting around waiting for someone to say that to us. We are, because we are the ones who are supposed to say it to ourselves. And nobody's ever going to say it to us until we say it to ourselves, actually. And nobody can actually love us more than we can love ourselves. Is an interesting part, because they have to love themselves the most. And then they can love you. So their love can only overflow from their cup, right? They can give it to themselves and then it overflows. Same with us. Same thing. We, as my mentor used to say to me, you are you, right? There's nobody else that can be you. You are you. So if you don't love yourself, who else is going to? Just saying this, okay, it seems very simplistic and no big deal. Well, it's not. It's a big deal, okay? It's very powerful, and it can be a technique on its own. It can be its own meditation. If you don't accept all your feelings for what they are in your body as a sensation, a feeling, not connected to your story. So that's the next level, is this, whatever it is not about the story. So, if you say that one, you cannot fool yourself anymore. Okay, you can't keep that emotion connected to that story. And that means that it has to be just a feeling, or a feeling in your body, a sensation. It's an experience. It's a part of God. And that is such a relief. It completely releases it. Even if you have to go back and do that about all of your stories, it actually does release something every time you say that. So this anxiety is not about the fact that my nephew turned blue. By the way, the other day, I turned my back for a second, and my 1-year-old nephew put dog shampoo all over the floor and then rolled around in it. Right? And it's like special allergy dog shampoo, okay? So he had his own allergy to it because he has eczema, and he turned blue and purple. And when you're babysitting a 1-year-old, you're like, oh no. I think I better call the nurse. And you're like, there's nothing that anybody can tell you at that time that is not going to make you think that you might have done something wrong, right? Or that you should feel anxious right now. It's okay. Like, these things happen to us because we're supposed to feel that feeling, okay? If we can tell ourselves it's okay for me to feel this feeling, but it's not actually about this thing right now. If we could tell ourselves that one thing, that would disconnect so much story, because we've got these stories going on in our life like this. And it never ends, you guys. It never ends until you say it's not about that story. It just keeps going like this forever.
You mean saying something like, I didn't do anything wrong. Just saying it, hey, this happens, it's okay to feel this way. And instead of keep going on and blaming yourself and all this stuff, is that what we mean exactly saying?
Right. So, like, if you feel like you did something wrong, for instance, I'm going to use the nephew thing, okay? If I feel like it was my fault that he turned blue and purple, okay, that's me feeling guilty.
Right.
So I say, I feel this guilt. I accept this guilt. I love this guilt. I'm still calling the nurse, okay? I'm not saying, like, I stopped doing what I'm doing, right? But after I finish calling the nurse and it's over, and he turns back to his normal color, because he did, then you say, and the ironic, the hilarious thing, right, is he's in his crib, like, acting normal, you know? He's like, la la la. But that's how God is. That's how creation is, you know? It's like, you might be feeling the worst feeling you've ever felt in your entire life, but the rest of creation is like, la la la, you've got a feeling right now, you know? And if you can learn how to be a little bit lighter about it like that and be like, wow, I feel really anxious right now. It's a feeling. It's not the worst thing in the entire world. It's just a feeling. I feel this guilt. I accept this guilt. I love this guilt. I love you, Hillary. This guilt is not about my nephew turning blue. Okay? Or however you want to say it to yourself, right? My Andrew turning blue is a very entertaining way of saying it. This guilt is not about what happened. Maybe that's all you need to say. It depends on yourself. But if you can disconnect it, then you can start feeling it in your body. It's probably in there in a certain particular place in your body, right? Like, I have certain places I feel more guilt. It's mostly on the right side for some reason. That's the male side of my body. There's probably a lot of reasons for that, right? So, but everybody else might have, like, you know, their left ovary feels guilt and their right ear feels anxiety. It's true. That's really how our bodies are, because we've put those emotions in those places in our body because of this, right? Because of this. Okay, so as much as you can love any particular experience, any particular feeling you're having, it gives your brain that message that you love yourself. Okay. So that is a whole technique in itself, and it's very simple and very difficult at the same time, right? It's difficult because we're not used to it. It's difficult because we just don't know how to do it yet, that's all. It's very simple because emotions, the heart, is a very simple thing, actually. That's what's so awesome about it, right? Because we have all these complicated spiritual techniques, you know? Not everything is complicated, but there's a lot of complicated books and things out there you can read and you can entertain your mind with, right? But as long as it's just going through the mind, it's not really doing that much. As long as it's not, you know, if it can go in here somehow, then you've internalized it. Then you're doing something with it. Okay. So the next level of, like, lifestyle practice of loving yourself is to start taking out the beliefs that are negative. And I mean that, like, I don't mean that, like, in the terms of, like, negative emotions, right? Because no emotions are negative. I don't care what anybody says. No emotions are negative. That's my soapbox right there. Beliefs, though, could be negative because they could be giving you negative experiences over and over again. They could be giving you experiences you don't want in your life, right? Like creating the same thing over and over again that you don't want. That's not really helpful. So your belief could be like, for instance, a negative belief, like I am not worthy of love. Okay, so that's why all of these awesome people now are developing belief processing methods that actually permanently take the belief out of your brain. I always go off about this because you can do a lot of things. Having intention is the most powerful thing, okay? Unfortunately, a lot of these lifestyle practices don't change your beliefs, right? Like eating vegetables probably doesn't. It kind of gives you the message that you're worthy of respect, right? It gives you that message, like that you're loving your body. But it could be a slow change, man. if you
vegetables eating, you may not get it in your lifetime.
Exactly, you might not get it in your lifetime. I've actually seen people who did Ayurvedic lifestyles for like 50 years, and they're still at the end of their life with this kind of like, you know, this hunched. This is a body language thing, right? I don't really want your love. That's what it says to me. Okay, but you've eaten dal and like vegetables for your, you know, last 50 years and meditated over and over again and did tons of yoga, but you still have like this blue pallor in your face and you're like wearing the same clothes that you had 50 years ago, which by the way, that's another thing, right? Compulsive shopping, not a self-loving technique. But if you are not allowing yourself to buy clothes for yourself, that's also not a self-loving technique. Okay, so belief processing that works, that I know of. I don't know about theta healing. I've heard that that's one that changes your theta healing. I've heard that changes your beliefs. I don't know that one personally.
It has to be.
Yes, I know for sure that radical forgiveness, EFT tapping, that one actually works a lot on the emotional body too. And empowerment process that some of us learned the other weekend, right?
Yes.
Byron Katie's The Work. Okay, these are different for different people, right? Some people some of them work better for others, for some people than others. For myself, personally, I can do most of these and they're going to work. But there's some people I wouldn't do the work with, for instance, because it's very, very simplistic, and maybe the person needs to go into the issue more and actually talk about it more. What's the other one? Particle work. My other friend, Rory Goff in Fairfield, created this one. He has a website, rorygoff.com, and he is awesome. And that is more of a meditational technique kind of thing. It might not work for some people as well because they might need to write something down, be really official about it and have somebody facilitate them. These things work because they go into what is not right, what is not working first, okay? That's why affirmations, I love affirmations and you should do them, and I'm not saying ever not to do them, but they're not a substitute for belief work, I don't think, because you have to go into what is not working first. You have to have an awareness of what the problem is before you solve it. And a generic affirmation might work for a lot of people, but it might not be specifically what you need as an individual, that your energy system needs. And an empowerment process, we figured out how to give, at the end, you kind of come up with an empowerment statement that's similar to an affirmation, right? But you only use it a couple times. You only use it once, really. And it changes your individual energy based on what words you need to hear, not what some spiritual teacher said that a bunch of people should do as far as an affirmation. So it's a little bit more particular, specific to you, because what you want to do is remove your beliefs that you are not worthy of love, which really is what it comes down to. It might be there's so many different variations on this belief, you guys. I am not loved. I am not worthy of love. I can't love myself. There's so many different beliefs. They're all about that same thing. There's a lot of other ones that could be useful. There's a lot of other things, belief processing. You might come to something about success and achievement or safety. Those things are important because they help you get closer to the love, too. You have to feel safe in order to feel love. It's a first chakra need. First chakra, safety, security, right? Second chakra, connection. Third chakra, achievement, will, independence, freedom. Fourth chakra, love. Fifth chakra, communication and having a voice, feeling worthy of your own voice, that kind of stuff. It keeps going, right?
Well, some of the stuff I've read also talks about the more you learn to love yourself. And I want to be clear. It doesn't mean that meeting someone or having a companion is bad, but you don't need to meet someone.
Yeah.
You don't need someone to feel that love. That's different than saying that because you're enough.
Yeah.
We don't believe that, so we look for love in other people, and like you just said.
It's so true. It's so true because I personally am a good example. I didn't think I could love myself. I thought I needed somebody else to love me. So I've been through 10 boyfriends. Believe me, eventually you figure out how to do self-loving things for yourself in between those boyfriends. And you realize the person is not going to give you what you need because you have to give it to yourself. And once you start giving yourself that love, other people start giving you more love, right? So then you get to actually have what you want. You get to actually have what you want because God will give it to you, believe me. I have better and better relationships the more I love myself. And they're more based on real appreciation instead of neediness or addiction or something like that, right? Most of us are addicted to something because we are not loving ourselves. We don't know how. So that's where addiction comes from too. So, okay. We pretty much talked about belief process. Do you have questions about belief stuff? So intentions are just like the even subtler aspect of belief processing. You know, when you sit down to do a belief process, you have an intention to love yourself. That's really what you're doing. You have an intention to root out what is not the mind of God. You can put it that way. So, intentions of loving yourself. You can do an affirmation every morning, or you can put messages to yourself on the mirror. Those are intentions, and those don't require a big process, and they are very powerful. You can have a mantra or a sutra that you do in meditation. So these are intentions. They're little things, little messages you're giving yourself. Like if you were giving yourself Hallmark cards, like you give to other people on their birthdays. You know, it's like that. You're actually, every time you give that person a Hallmark card, you're actually sending them a message of love, and it's all about whether or not they're open to receive it, how much that touches them, and how much that actually gives them love. Okay. Oh, one more deep area that's not up here is doing what they call in Sanskrit your dharma. And that is your divine job. And that is just the concept that you came here in this life to do a particular thing. It doesn't necessarily mean that you came here to be a soccer coach. Maybe you did, but it could mean you came here to create transformation in people, or you came here to just give nurturing to people. You came here to learn a particular lesson for yourself. Okay, so those can be dharmas too. Those are like a deeper level of the dharma. And the more superficial level is like what actual job you're doing for money, right? Doing what you love, like we said before, doing what you love gives yourself this great message. And doing what you came here to do, that deep feeling of like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. When you do that, and the best thing is, when you do that and you get money for it, then you get this message, like, big time. The brain gets a message of love, and also, like, that you're accomplishing your whole goal of being here, this incarnation. I mean, that's a huge, very deep thing. And really, more and more, what I do with people starts to come down to this, actually. Like, I start to come to this as a lot of our, even like in our Prosperous Heart class, we're coming to that. It's like, when we're talking about other things, love, money, you know, all these other things, we come to this at a certain point because this time in Earth history is unique. And we're going to start, like, switching into what we're really supposed to be doing instead of just, like, doing something to pass the time or, like, because we needed the money, right? Because that was all based on a system that's actually not a correct system. And that's okay because it's not like go out and quit your job, right? It's just start doing your dharma. Whether or not you go to a job every day that you like or not, that doesn't really matter, actually, because you can still do your dharma. You can do your dharma for 1 hour a day, or you can do your dharma on Saturdays, or you can whatever. But figure out what really lights your fire in here. Your passion. Your passion, because sometimes in spirituality we don't say that word, right? Because passion sounds a little hot and heavy, right? But passion is it, man. That's the fire of life right there. That's real love for yourself when you're doing your passion. And sometimes these self-loving activities lead to that. Or sometimes that leads to self-love. Either way, it's all, it's all love. And you came here to love yourself. I will guarantee you that that's part of your dharma. That part of the reason for your being here is to learn to love yourself. And that could be learning to love your individual soul, right? Some people think, oh, I have to learn to love myself and accept myself. I had this bad childhood, and my parents died. I went to an orphanage, so I need to learn to love that about myself, that I was in an orphanage. That's okay. That's good. That's self-love, okay? That's a certain level of it, though, right? That's like loving your earth personality, right? You can love your body. That is a huge deal. Because who wakes up in the morning, looks at themselves in the mirror, and says, I like it? If we did that, you guys, our body would change shape,
Yes.
like overnight almost. Because your body will start conforming to responding to that love that it feels from you. And it will start conforming to whatever shape you want it to be. If you start accepting how it is now. Acceptance is a big, step towards love. It's kind of that first step that cannot be skipped. Acceptance has that kind of earth quality to it. You can even do energy work on yourself with acceptance if you need to. You can say, I'm gonna sit here and I'm gonna feel the earth energy coming up and accepting my body for what it looks like right now. Or I'm gonna sit here and I'm gonna feel an angel presence accepting my feeling that I had right now. You know? You can use that. Use whatever images work for you because it's okay. You know, it doesn't matter what they are. It's the same goal. It accomplishes the same goal. And also, you might not be making it up, man. Most of the things that we think are imagination are actually memory experiences or experiences that we're having right now that we are not accepting that we're actually having. So use your imagination because it's your real truth, actually. Inner child happiness, imagination. Well, that was an extremely positive experience just teaching that. The more that you talk about self-love, the more that you start feeling it. That's another thing. You could go teach a kid how to do something loving for themselves, and you're going to feel awesome, you know? So that's a collective activity then. That would be a collective activity. If we put the collective over here. Giving love, right? Or teaching love. The thing about those things is sometimes we just don't know how to receive yet. So if we give, it opens up the pathway for receiving.
Right.
Yeah. And that's the reason. It's not because we're supposed to give first. When people say if you want to receive, you should give, it's a little backwards. You're supposed to receive first and then give, but you're supposed to open up and receive from God energetically and then go to work, right? You're not actually supposed to go to work and get a paycheck for what you gave. It would be awesomer, right, if we just got a paycheck and then we did whatever we really wanted to do. But so if we receive that energetic love first, then we can give. But it might be that we have to give first because we don't know how to receive. Because most of us, our receiving is pretty low, actually. If you look at what we're capable of, like the 12 strands of DNA that we apparently used to have, or whatever. The however many brain cells that we're not using, right? And all the pathways that are not open. Okay. I think I pretty much said everything that I wanted to say. I like that you all took your own notes too, because then you have your particular self-love, individual things that you need to do for yourself. Who has questions they want to ask me? Anybody?
I have an insight that I thought was really funny.
Uh-huh.
When you're talking about, like, you can change your body with love or whatever.
Uh-huh.
I've been practicing my Reiki, And a lot of times my animals are in the room with me when I'm doing it, and we had to do it on ourselves.
Mhm.
Whatever, 21 days. And I was looking at my dog this afternoon. It's like he looks younger. What's the deal? And I'm thinking that's what it is. He's like gotten this Reiki, this